Your name, please.
My name is Nelly Fanous. I was born on March the 9th, 1957.
And region of birth.
I was born in Jerusalem, Israel, to a Palestinian Christian family from the Anglican faith.
May I know your background with Egypt?
So this is a very interesting story. The background with Egypt is that I married into a Coptic family. So the Fanous family are very well known in Palestine. My husband's grandfather, Stefan Fanous, was a scribe for the Coptic Church in Egypt. He was born in Bur Said during the 19th century. He was sent to Palestine as a scribe for the Coptic Church, where he married a Palestinian, he raised his family, he lived and died in Palestine. The books that he wrote are both in Coptic and the Arabic language, and it's copies of the Bible that he wrote by hand. Actually, these books are displayed in Jerusalem in the Patriarch of the Coptic Church, or the monastery, if you would like. And then the story continues. My father-in-law, Jabra Fanous, the Coptic Church representative in Palestine, he worked as a volunteer and was very well known and respected throughout Palestine. And my husband's uncle, his name is Ya'ub Fanous. He was an artist who painted icons in the Coptic churches throughout Egypt and other countries. So that's how I am related, my background to Egypt. Yes.
And they're well known in Jerusalem, more so in both Egypt. Did they end up going back and forth between countries?
So Jabra Fanous, who is my father-in-law, stayed in Palestine. Ya'ub Fanous, who is his brother, he went to Egypt and lived there, brought up his family there, and eventually died in Egypt.
May I ask why you yourself immigrated from Jerusalem, Israel?
My husband lived in Jaffa. So it's all Palestine or Israel at that time. We came to Canada in 1980.
May I ask the reason for your immigration to Canada?
Well, we wanted a better life for our kids. We have two boys, Gabriel and Steve. They were both born in Jerusalem. And we came to Canada when Gabriel was 1.5 years and Stevie was only 6 months.
How about your choice to come to Canada?
We had an opportunity to immigrate to Canada for a couple of reasons, actually. First, my sister-in-law worked at the Canadian Embassy in Tel Aviv, and so she helped with the paperwork. And then my parents came to Canada about 2 years before us. So they were here. It was an opportunity. You know, when opportunity comes, we took it.
And did you initially arrive in the GTA? Was this your first location?
Yes.
What was your impression of the GTA, Greater Toronto Area?
Well, Toronto is beautiful, I think. It's a big city. I liked it.
What was it like settling and adapting in a new city?
Well, you know, everything was new to us, like the weather, the distances between places where you had to drive to get from one place to another. The social life was also different here as well.
Are there any struggles or challenges you faced during your arrival or after your arrival?
Well, it was not easy since our boys were very young. So I stayed at home and did not work until they went full-time to school. My husband also struggled finding a job that he can do and enjoy at the same time. You know, he speaks fluent English and French, other, of course, than our Arabic language and Hebrew, because we lived in Israel. But yet it was difficult. everyone was actually looking for a Canadian experience, which of course we didn't have. So he finally bought a taxi and worked on it for a year or so until he got a dealer's license, and he became a car dealer and worked for almost, the entire time. And he just recently retired. But for me, once my boys went to school, I did find a job in an association for financial advisors, which I'm still there. I will be retiring the end of this year. And this would have been over 30 years that I have been with this association. The other thing we wanted to do was also, we wanted to connect with the Coptic Church, because back home, we were very involved in the Coptic Church. So we went to St. Mark's Church, which was the first church to build in Toronto. And we went there, for support as Coptics, new people in Canada, and so on. But to my surprise, they did not know that people in Palestine can also be Coptic. It's very uncomfortable, even though we tried to mingle, but we still felt strangers. So we went to church, and then we came back home and nobody spoke to us. But then there was another church built, Don Mills, which was St. George and St. Ruiz, where we went there for a visit as well. And again, we had the same feeling. But through my work at the association, we offer paper exams to our advisors. And I thought of contributing and helping the church by booking their gym to our advisors to write their exams. And so this is what I did. I made a deal with Father Ruiz, and I did this for years, and I was very happy to help. But I'd like to tell you something. The good news about all of this was that we have the pleasure of going to Father Bishoy's new church. Now, Father Bishoy was a deacon at St. Mark's Church, and he eventually became a priest. He started his church in a school gym until, of course, his church was built in Markham. But as soon as we walked into the gym and saw the diversity and the different culture amongst his congregation, we immediately felt different. After the service, he approached us, asked us for our names, where are we from? And from that day, he always remembered our names and always asked about us. As new immigrants and coming to this country, we needed that kind of a feel, especially from our church. That made us feel welcomed, part of the community and part of the Coptic Church. I was surprised and happy to see that he had Chinese and other cultures joining his deacon's team. What a sight it was. Everyone is treated equally. And members of his congregation, whether they were males or females, married to other cultures. And that was exactly what we needed, a sense of belonging. He eventually did build his church. It's called St. Maurice and St. Verena in Markham. It's the most beautiful church where you can feel the love, the respect, and most of all, the Christian faith all around. Yeah, we went through that as well here in Toronto.
That sounds like a beautiful story. It must have been difficult in the beginning to feel surrounded by just an Egyptian population where it might have felt like an outsider or you couldn't talk to anybody. I'm happy that Father Bishoy was accepting of a very diverse population in his church.
It's a multicultural church. Even when we first went there, he had the families all sit together. When we went to St. Mark's Church at the beginning, they had the men sitting on one side and all the women and children sitting on the other side. So my husband and I were separated. But when we went to Father Bishoy, I'm telling you, it was a beautiful experience, just beautiful. And we really love him. We baptized our grandkids at his church as well. And through this pandemic, he has been checking on us. And I think this is what it should be.
And Father Pishoy, what made him different from other priests at other churches, other Coptic churches?
Well, he's approachable, number one.
Mm-hmm.
He came up to us to introduce himself. As soon as he saw that there were people that he didn't know, he came up to us. And, at the beginning, his church at the school, it was in a gym. When we first went there, he only had chairs not even halfway through the gym. And then at the back of the church, he had a big table where they were offering tea and coffee and snacks after the service. As we kept going there, the room was filled with more chairs and more chairs. Eventually, there was no room. There was full of chairs. The coffee and tea and the snacks were outside in the foyer. That is how much he was loved. And it was all in English too. So it helped the younger generation who had children understand the service. And he welcomed everybody. And he would say, if anybody is new, please stand up, introduce yourself, and let us know who you are. And I think that made the difference for us to keep going to church because we felt we belonged. And he actually cared, as opposed to the other churches. Nobody talked to us. We went there, we tried to mingle, but as soon as you didn't have this Egyptian accent, who are you, where are you coming from? That was kind of odd.
I wanted to know what your life was back home.
We had a good life. The only thing that was going on was the conflict between the Jews and Arabs that made it unstable. That's why we decided to come. Both me and my husband worked. We lived in Jaffa, so we both worked in Tel Aviv. But again, it's the stability that we wanted for our kids that made us come to Canada.
Do you still maintain connections with Israel?
Absolutely. We go there every year. Boys were younger. We used to take them with us every year. My mother-in-law, or my in-laws, my father-in-law, they had a connection, as I said to you, in the Coptic convent. Mm-hmm. So they had a house, and they still do. We go there and we stay there every year for maybe a month. And when the kids were younger, we went there. They visited the family, they visited the grandmother, and we still have connection with the Coptic community there, especially with the Archbishop in Jerusalem and the priests around Jaffa.
What do you keep of your home country? Any special customs, foods, manners?
Well, we speak the Hebrew language because we were working with the Jewish people. We also, of course, know the Arabic language. We are accustomed to many, many things. Life there is different than here. There is more social life. And maybe now it's changed. But before, people just visited each other when they wanted, even without a phone call. During Christmas or Easter or big celebrations, our house, which is my in-laws' house, was opened all day from 10 o'clock until the evening, where all the priests of all the different religions in the area came on that day to just say Happy Easter. And so our house was always full of people coming in and out during the holidays. I also remember Easter Sunday from Jerusalem, the Archbishop used to send a bus full of the Coptic congregation to Jaffa, because in Jaffa, the monastery that we had, which is right beside our house, has a big vineyard, and it had places, trees, oranges, where people can do picnic. And so Easter Monday, that was the day, and in Arabic they called it Ti'bile. These buses would come, and with the priests from the Coptic Church in Jerusalem, they would have a picnic in the yard there. And the priests who came from Jerusalem, my mother-in-law would invite them for lunch. Also the Archbishop. So she would let them say, okay, you come to lunch with us while everybody else is having their picnic. And we always had the Archbishop and his priests for lunch on Ti'bile Day. My father-in-law passed away, unfortunately, before I got married, so I never got to meet him. But my mother-in-law, she lived in Jaffa for a while, and then we brought her here to Canada, and she lived with us for a long time as well, because we didn't want to leave her by herself in Jaffa. So that was the connection that it was different in Jaffa than we have here.
It sounds very beautiful.
And it is. And the other thing, when my mother-in-law was here, I also tried to connect her with the Coptic Church for their senior meetings. Now, the Coptic Church, I think, here in Canada and throughout, is the best church I have seen because they are all together. They have programs for the little kids, they have programs for the teenagers, they have programs for the parents, they have programs for the newlyweds, they have programs for the seniors. And there hasn't been a Sunday where we went to church and it was not full. It is full every single Sunday, and you see the same faces, the same people, the same family. So when I did take my mother-in-law to the senior meetings, I also helped with those who are wheelchairs, and they took us to trips. And I always went there for the sake of my mother-in-law, you know, like she was always cooped up in the house. Whenever I had a chance to take her out, I would. I would also like to mention that one year, the Pope Shenouda came to Canada, and he came because they were going to open a church in Collingwood. But that day I thought, you know what, I'm going to take the day off and I'm going to take my mother-in-law and let's go with the church. And we did. When we were there, of course, they had a service. And the Pope, Shenouda, after the service, sat on a table and he accepted questions from the congregation. They wrote the questions on the piece of paper and gave it to him, so he didn't know who it was from. I was surprised at one question that came up to the Pope, which said something along the line of, I am a Coptic and I would like to marry a Protestant or an Anglican, which is what I am. And I was really shocked at the answer that the Pope gave. And what he basically said, why are you going to another faith to get married? The Anglicans or the Protestant, they don't believe in the 7 secrets. And I didn't understand what was he talking about. But I felt like, here I am, I'm a Christian, I am baptized. Why is I am different than the Coptics? Why is there this separation? And until today, I really don't understand why. But again, when we met Father Bishoy, all of that has really, it was gone. He doesn't care if you're Protestant or Catholic. He doesn't care if you're Black or if you're white. Doesn't care if you're Chinese or if you're an Indian. He just accepts everybody.
That's how it should be.
Exactly, exactly. We're all Christians. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Christian as much as any Coptic is. And when I did take my mother-in-law to the senior meetings, the organizer, who was younger, and he would ask me, my accent is different, and and I told him, and he said, that you should not be taking Holy Communion because you're not Coptic. I said, okay. I didn't take Holy Communion because when I go to Jerusalem every year, I go to St. George, the Anglican cathedral, and I take Holy Communion there just because I felt more comfortable. But it was strange. It was strange. And now they will baptize people if you're from a different faith, if you're Catholic or if you're Anglican, married to a Coptic person. But I recently heard that even that is changing within the Coptic faith. I don't know how much, I don't know how, but that is what I heard.
How's your life now compared to when you first arrived?
Well, our lives now is great. Our boys are very successful in what they do. They both run their own companies. As I said, I will be retiring soon, and I'll be spending time with my 3 grandchildren.
Wow, that's plenty.
Yes.
That's a great, thank God that you have a blessed life.
Yes, absolutely.
Is all the rest of the family Coptic?
Well, my husband's family, yes, they're all Coptics.
And the grandchildren?
My grandchildren are Coptic, yes. They were baptized with Abuna Bishoy, all 3 of them, yes. And my kids were also baptized at the Coptic Church in Jerusalem.
Wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
And what does Israel mean to you now? Have your feelings changed over time?
I will tell you, when we came to Canada, I love the life here in Canada. My husband, he always wants to go back, always. He wanted to go back. Of course, we're not going to go back to live, but we go back. And when I retire, we will be going there and spending more time. We love the country. We have friends. I still have relatives there, my cousins, my uncle, my auntie, even my immediate family are here. I still have family there that I make it a point to go to see them when I can. But for life in general, Canada is a much better place to live. And for the sake of my boys, I think we made the right decision.
It must have been very difficult to leave everything and go. I can.
And don't forget, it's a beautiful country. It's the Holy Land, Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. There is history in our country. Nazareth, for example, it's history and it's beautiful. The country is beautiful. The villages, the food.
Mm-hmm.
Also nice. For example, from Jaffa to Israel, it's 45 minutes drive, a train. It's just a beautiful place.
Wait, so when you mentioned Jaffa to Israel, is this like a...
Israel, Jaffa to Jerusalem, sorry.
Jaffa to Jerusalem, okay.
Yes. But if you ask me today, would you immigrate to another country? I would have to think twice because I did it once.
Yeah.
Will I do it again? I don't know.